So let's review. In continuing with the theme of the previous daf of not saying anything negative, our daf began with the story of Rav, who was Reb Chia's nephew on both his mother's and his father's side. When asked, Rav refused to explicitly report the passing of both his parents. Instead, he responded to the question about each parent by saying, "Why did you ask me about the other parent?" Reb Chia, upon learning of his sibling's passing, said to his attendant, "Chalutz li min alai, remove my shoes. V'hoylech kli acher lebeis hamerchatz, bring along my clothes to the bathhouse." The Gemara comments, from Chia's behavior we learn three things. Avel asr ben ilas hasandal, a mourner may not wear shoes. Shmur rachayka en neheges el yem echad, if one learns of the death of a relative 30 days after their passing, he observes only one day of avelis. Miktzas hayem kekulei, when observing Shiva, part of the day counts as the entire day. The Gemara goes on to tell stories where we were able to figure out what shaved a person was from based on what they would say. The fellow who always spoke about going to court was from Dan, who are the judges. And the fellow who always spoke about living by the shore was from Zvulun, who lived by the shore as they engaged in trade. The Gemara now goes back to the issue of bedikas chametz. Now that we have concluded that all agree we do bedikas chametz at night, the question is, why not do bedika during the day? After all, chametz is only forbidden from the 6th hour forward. Even if we consider zrizim magdim mitzvahs, doing mitzvahs early, that would only require doing bedika in the morning, just like we do a bris in the morning, which we learn from the pasuk, V'yashkem Avram b'Baker. Avram Avinu rose early in the morning. The Gemara answers that bedika is done at night, b'shash shebnei adam mitzuin bebetehem, when people are usually home. V'or haner yafal bedika, and because the light of a candle, which is very useful in bedikas chametz, is only effective at night. Parenthetically, the Gemara mentions that a tzuva mirabanan, a young Talmid Chacham, should not start learning at the time of bedikas chametz, because he may get engrossed in his learning and neglect to do bedika. The Gemara goes on to pose 3 questions regarding bedikas chametz of rentals. First, hamasker bais lechaver ba'arba asra, al mi livdik. When one rents a house on the 14th day of Nisan, who is responsible to do the bedika? It cannot be compared to mezuzah, because mezuzah has its own unique reasons why it's chayvus hadar, the responsibility of the person who lives there. Rashi explains, because he is the beneficiary of the shmira, the protection of the mezuzah that the mezuzah provides. Because regarding certain halachas, we understand the word beisecha as biascha, your entrance into the house, which obviously applies to the current resident. Regarding bedikas chametz, the responsibility of bedika is upon the one who had the keys on the night of the 14th, when the obligation of bedika went into effect. Rashi explains, because mesiris mafteach hikinin haschiris, handing over the keys is the acquisition of the rights of rental. Whoever has the keys is considered the owner. Taisa explains, because the one who has the key has access to the house. Next, the Gemara asks, hamasker bais lechaver baba asr chaskase badik or ein chaskase badik? If the owner of the rental home is not available to be asked, can a tenant assume that a house he rents on Erev Pesach was already searched for chametz by the owner the night before? The Gemara cites a brayso which can be understood both ways. Hakol nemanim al bir chametz, afel nashim, afel avadim, afel gitanim. Generally, women, slaves, and minors are not acceptable as witnesses. However, they are believed regarding bedikas chametz. Now, if we hold ein chaskase badik, we do not assume bedika was done. The brayso is teaching that we may believe them that the owner did bedikas chametz. If we hold chaskase badik, we do assume bedika was done. We would only need their testimony in a case where we know that the owner did not do bedikas chametz. For example, as Rashi says, we know that he was otherwise occupied or that he was away. And the brayso is teaching that they are believed if they say that they themselves did bedikas chametz. The reason we can rely on them is because bedikas chametz midrabanan. Searching for chametz is only required midrabanan. Midaraisa bebitl ba'amasagale. On the daraisa level, nullifying the chametz would suffice. Therefore, himnu rabbanan b'derabanan. The rabbanan ruled to believe nashim avad mugatanim for dinim derabanan. There is a well-known machlekes Rashi b'taisis which requires a lot of iyun b'divei harishonim achrein. Midaraisa bebitl ba'amasagi. Rashi says, "T'chsiv tashpisu v'lo chsiv tavaru v'hashbasa deleiv hi hashvasa." Tavaru would mean physically destroy. Tashbisu means to eliminate in any way, and bittul, by nullifying the chametz in one's heart and thoughts, it is considered eliminated. Taisus holds bittul matam hefker. Nullifying the chametz is tantamount to declaring it ownerless and no longer his. Finally, the Gemara asks, "Hamasker bais lechaver becheskas badik, umatzay she'ena badik mahu mihava kemekach tois olai." If the rental agreement was that the house was supposed to be searched, and it turns out not to have been searched, can the tenant back out of the lease agreement with the claim that it's a mekach tais, a mistaken transaction based on a false premise? Abaye says that he cannot back out, because even if he had known earlier that bedikas chametz was not done, he would have accepted the deal, because a person is pleased to do the mitzvah himself, and even if he would have to pay others to do bedikas chametz, because a person is pleased to do mitzvahs with his money. The Gemara continues. From where in the Torah do we learn that chametz becomes asur and must be eliminated 6 hours into the day on Erev Pesach? The Gemara answers, there's an apparent contradiction between two psukim. One pasuk says, Shivas yam sa'ar liyimatz bevetechem. For a full 7 days there should be no chametz in the person's home. Another pasuk says, Ach b'yam harishin tashbisu sa'ar mibetechem. On the first day you shall destroy all chametz, which implies that it still exists at the beginning of the first day of Pesach. The only way to resolve this contradiction is to interpret the word Rishon not as the first day of Pesach, but as the day before Pesach. The word Ach then teaches to split the day in half. Chametz is mutter the first half, and only asur the second half of the day. In the next daf, we will see several other approaches to how we know that Rishon means the day before Pesach and not the first day of Pesach, even without this stira between the psukim.